Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner.
In our top story, Jerusalem's iconic Zion Square was filled with mourners last Saturday night after news broke of the tragic synagogue shooting in Pennsylvania that left 11 dead. Hundreds of Israelis gathered for the spontaneous candlelight vigil where they prayed for the families of those killed and the recovery of the wounded. The Tel Aviv Municipal Building and the walls of the Old City of Jerusalem were lit with images of the American and Israeli flags as Jews across Israel expressed their shock and horror at the senseless murders. Israel's Minister of Diaspora Affairs, Naftali Bennett, boarded the first flight to the United States after the Jewish Sabbath, and he instructed his ministry to immediately dispatch Israeli emergency and resilience teams to provide psychological assistance and community rehabilitation. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu released a message expressing his heartbreak and said that Israel stands together with the Jewish community of Pittsburgh and with the American people in the face of this horrendous anti-Semitic brutality.
The PLO Central Council has voted to cancel recognition of Israel, as well as all economic and security coordination with the Jewish state, which were all agreed upon in the Oslo Accords. Days ahead of the PLO Central Committee meeting in Ramallah, PA leader Mahmoud Abbas slammed the United States' recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital and insisted that Jerusalem belongs to the Palestinians down to the last centimeter. Abbas added that the PA is considering ways to punish Israel and the United States for several offenses, including recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital, the shuttering of the PLO's headquarters in Washington, D.C., severance of hundreds of millions of dollars in U.S. aid for the Palestinian Authority's continued policy of paying the families of terrorists, and America's withdrawal of funding to UNRWA after deeming the Palestinian-only refugee organization to be fundamentally flawed.
Israel Aerospace Industries has won a $777 million contract to equip 7 Indian naval vessels with LR-SAM missile defense systems. This particular program is part of the Barak 8 family, which is an Israeli-designed air and missile defense program. Israeli leaders praised the cooperation of the two countries in the areas of defense, agriculture, and advanced technologies. This latest deal has pushed sales of the Barak 8 system to over $6 billion.
Israel, the only true democracy in the Middle East, just held municipal elections. Citizens exercised their right to cast ballots for 863 mayoral candidates and 3,400 city council heads. And in a first-time occurrence, all 6,653,808 eligible voters were all given the day off work so that they could elect representatives to serve their communities for the next 5 years. And history was also made by the participation in the municipal elections by Druze residents of the Golan Heights. Israel has traditionally appointed members to the councils of the 4 Druze communities in the Golan, but citizens of these towns recently petitioned the High Court for the right to elect their own officials. Justices approved the appeal and thus enabled the direct local Israeli Druze elections for the first time ever.
The United Arab Emirates has hosted an Israeli female cabinet minister and allowed Israel's judokas to display their national flag for the first time. 3 Israelis won bronze medals for their performance in this year's competition. Later, Israel's national anthem, Hatikva, was played, signifying another first in the Arab Gulf state after Israeli judoka Sagi Muki won the gold medal at the Abu Dhabi Grand Slam. The sounds of Hatikva filled the venue again when Peter Palchik won the gold on the second day of the tournament. This marks a huge shift in the Muslim country's attitude towards the Jewish state. It was only a year ago that contestants representing Israel were forbidden from displaying state symbols or playing their beloved national anthem during the awards ceremonies.
Oman's Foreign Minister Youssef bin Alawi bin Abdullah has shocked the Arab world by describing Israel as an accepted Middle East state and saying that it should be treated like all their countries in the region. The stunning declarations came just one day after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was hosted by Sultan Qaboos in the Gulf country. The Israeli leader later informed the Knesset that ties between Israel and several Arab states are closer than ever before. Currently, the Jewish state holds full diplomatic relations with only 2, Jordan and Egypt. But the rise in Islamic fundamentalism, combined with the increasing dangers posed by nuclear Iran, are forcing moderate Arab nations to consider Israel as a possible ally.
Caught in the act, the Hezbollah terror group has been exposed for operating several illegal surveillance sites under the guise of a Lebanese humanitarian organization. The IDF revealed that Hezbollah extremists have violated UN Security Council Resolution 1701 by establishing illegal observation posts south of the Litani River in order to spy on Israel. Hezbollah is an Iranian proxy army which has taken control of Lebanese territory along Israel's northern border. The terror group has been working with Tehran to obtain advanced precision-guided missiles to further their goal of destroying the Jewish state.
Israelis living in the Gaza border region spent last Shabbat in their bomb shelters once again as terrorists in Gaza bombarded the civilian Jewish communities with a barrage of 36 deadly rockets. Now Hamas is resorting to open extortion and demanding that the Jewish state pay $15 million a month to prevent further attacks. Israeli media has reported that the head of the Gaza-based terror group presented Egypt with demands that Israel transfer $15 million through Qatar each and every month to ensure a ceasefire. The Israeli cabinet has held a series of urgent meetings to consult over the deteriorating security situation in the Gaza border communities and to discuss IDF intel that Iran and Syria are directing the recent escalation in rocket fire from Gaza. Yochanan has more on that story.
That's right, Aaron. The Israeli army has concluded that Palestinian terror groups in Gaza are acting on behalf of Iran and Syria. The IDF spokesperson's office released a statement in the aftermath of a recent wave of unrelenting rocket fire, saying, "We know that the orders were given from Damascus with the clear involvement of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard's Al-Quds force." The announcement went on to explain that the IDF's main objectives include fighting against Iranian entrenchment in Syria, preventing the transfer of advanced weaponry to Hezbollah, and maintaining security for Israeli residents in the south of the country, along with those living in Judea and Samaria.
Sports news now. And 10 American baseball players have made Aliyah just so they can be eligible for inclusion in Israel's Olympic team. Several of the athletes already have previous experience representing the Jewish state at the World Baseball Classic, and they've decided to do their utmost to help Jerusalem make it to the 2020 Olympics. Major leaguer John Muscat expressed how very impressed he is with the Israeli baseball scene, as well as what it's doing for the nation's youth. He said that to play for the Israeli team is an amazing opportunity that's like going back home to the roots of his religion, to be a part of something bigger than just himself.
The Israeli Knesset has passed legislation enabling hotels and restaurants to donate leftovers to soup kitchens without liability. According to Gidi Kroch, the CEO of Leket, Israel's national food bank, about half of Israel's wasted food is safe for consumption and has full nutritional value. This organization has been lobbying the Knesset to pass the Food Donation Act, which they believe will open the door to hundreds of organizations and businesses that have quality and substantial amounts of surplus food but do not donate it out of fear of liability. Currently, 1.8 million Israelis suffer from nutritional insecurity, while 2.3 million tons of leftovers are thrown away annually. Leket believes this new law will triple donations.
Jerusalem's largest medical facility, the Hadassah Ein Kerem Hospital, has proudly just unveiled the new Irma and Paul Milstein Heart Center. The $10 million ward is equipped with the latest cardiovascular technology and has doubled the capacity of patients who can be treated at the world-renowned cardiac facility. The creation of the center was made possible by a donation from Mr. and Mrs. Howard Milstein, who dedicated the wing in memory of his parents. A fascinating archaeological exhibit has opened in the ancient city of Hebron. The Tel Hebron Visitor Center is displaying thousands of years of Jewish history in the Holy City, including jewelry, coins, and oil presses that date back to the First Temple period. Israel's Deputy Defense Minister attended the opening ceremony and commented that Hebron is the birthplace of Jewish history and the city of our patriarchs. Eli Ben-Dahan stressed that it is the eternal city of the eternal Jewish people, and he expressed his excitement that his children and grandchildren can visit to see evidence for themselves of generation after generation of Jews who lived in Hebron over thousands of years, dating back to the very origins of Judaism itself.
Israel is moving up the global life expectancy ladder. Researchers at the University of Washington released a study which shows that by the year 2040, Israelis are expected to live among the longest in the world. The Jewish state ranks 7th on the list after Spain, Japan, Singapore, Switzerland, Portugal, and Italy. 2 decades from now, Israelis will have a projected life expectancy of 84 and a third years. This signifies an improvement for the Jewish state, which currently sits in 13th place for longevity. The survey names 5 main deterrent factors in life expectancy, which are high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, and the use of alcohol and tobacco.
Israel is a major contributor to world efforts to save endangered species. Rhinoceroses at the Ramat Gan Safari in the center of the country were finally able to officially welcome their newest member. The female calf tipped the scales at 110 pounds at birth this past summer, but she's been kept by her mother's side in a fenced-off maternity ward until now. Her addition has been joyously celebrated because white rhinos have been poached almost to extinction. The baby girl joins 4 siblings who live among 300 other rhinos living at the protected Israeli preserve. That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here on a beautiful sunny day in Jerusalem on a rooftop studio. My guest today is Dr. Ruben Berko. He's an international expert on radical Islam. Dr. Berko, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Josh, for having me here.
So, Dr. Berko, please, for the first question, answer, what do you have to say to people who say Islam is a religion of peace?
Well, unfortunately, I cannot assure this. If you want to look for messages of war, you can easily find it in any surah, in any tradition, in any hadith, which say, prepare your horses and military abilities to overcome the enemies, the infidels, and all those who do not believe in Allah and His Prophet. So this is one end. On the other hand, you can find messages of peace and being moderated to other religions. You just have to find what you are actually looking for at the very beginning. You will find it in any case.
Since the early 90s, we've been involved in something called the peace process. Yet, what people call a political process, the other side seems to see it as a religious process. How do you see it?
Unfortunately, the Palestinians try to turn it into a religious conflict. It is not a religious conflict, despite the fact that in general, Islam is concentrated in monotheism in Mecca, and in the very beginning, the Prophet wanted to locate Jerusalem as the center of the prayers, but he changed it into Mecca. The story of Islam says that the Prophet Muhammad went to the skies to get the orders of Lord by having a station in Jerusalem. It doesn't matter. As for us as Israelis and Jews, we consider any religion, any freedom of any religion, they can worship God in any term as far as Israel is concerned. But the Palestinians unfortunately try to say, in order to gain points on the struggle on Jerusalem, in which they have nothing, no historical, no religious points, they try to change this conflict into a religious one, even though Islam doesn't mean anything, is not interested in Jerusalem except for political reasons at the time of the Umayyad. You must remember, Josh, that all over history, Jerusalem has never been a capital to any state. And more than this, since there's never been a Palestinian state, Jerusalem has never been a capital of a state that never been existed.
You bring up a very important point. The UNESCO and the UN just made a resolution that the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, where Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac, is not a Jewish place, and it's definitely not a Christian place. It's actually a Muslim place. Yet in the Quran doesn't mention Jerusalem even once. How do they explain that?
You are right. You know, Quran actually in a very clear-cut verses says that this holy land, the blessed land, as it said in the Quran, is inherited to the sons of Israel, which are the Jews. This is written very briefly and very clearly in the Quran. More than this, Even when Jerusalem was conquered by Caliph Umar ibn al-Khattab, he was in the Temple Mount with a Jewish fellow who was converted to Islam. He asked him, where is the Temple Mount? Where is the Jewish Temple Mount? They both exposed that the remains of the Jewish Temple Mount are under a mountain of garbage which the Romans put there in order to harm the Jewish memories and to harm Judea Capta, as it was called at the time of the Romans. Judea Capta, they changed even the name to Palestine, a name that Palestinians even cannot express. So in any case, Jerusalem, coming back to the points in which Palestinians have no lever to demand for Jerusalem, is the fact that Jerusalem is, and the holy place, and the places which God has blessed upon, in the Quran, it's the Jewish property, the Jewish inheritance. It's written there very clearly. Even the story of the journey of the night made by the prophet mentioned that the prophet has tied his miracle horse with the wing to the walls here in Jerusalem, to the mosque here in Jerusalem. What mosque was it before the prophet appeared? I mean the Prophet Muhammad. It means that was a mosque which is the holy place of the temple of the Jews. The remains were there, even according to the Islamic story, and ending by the story of Khalifa Umar ibn al-Khattab, who has opened and exposed the remains of the temple of the Jews. It's all in the Islamic stories, but unfortunately they ignore it, as they ignore any chapter of Quran concerning the Jews.
Dr. Burka, let's move on to terrorism, because you're an expert on Islamic terrorism. Whenever there's an Islamic attack around the world, it's seen as Islamic terrorists. Yet in Israel, for some reason, when there's an Islamic terrorist attack, it's only seen as a part of the conflict between Jews and the Palestinians. Why do they not identify in the international media attacks in Israel as Islamic terrorism?
Well, you're touching a very, very sensitive point in the behavior of mainly the European. You know, I don't want to get back to the sad story of anti-Semitism, but everybody understands that the operational code of radical Islamism is to convert the world into Islam. We are now in Israel something like an enclave or a protesting barrage against the invasion of Islam to Europe. They understand, they begin to understand the story.
Dr. Burka, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
Well, the message is that one must understand that Jerusalem cannot be divided. Jerusalem didn't wait for Abu Mazen and his fellows to reassure or to agree or not agree to the fact that Israel and Jerusalem is its capital. King David put this fact 300 years ago, not to wait for Abu Mazen to approve it. Actually, we are happy for anybody in the world who support this fact. But this fact is a fact that has been made so many years ago that all we have to do is agree and accept the facts of history and the bless of Lord. This is the story we have to take with us all over our short journey in the world.
Thank you, Dr. Burka, for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Shalom and welcome to the Return to Zion with Karen Hayesod. I'm Greg Maisel, the Director General of Keren Hayesod United Israel Appeal, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Aryeh Oz is one of Israel's most famed pilots, and was responsible for helping to bring home our brothers and sisters from Ethiopia. Let his story inspire you to help bring home the next generation of Ethiopian Olim.
I was born in Germany. My family fled Germany after the Kristallnacht to Holland with an intention to immigrate to Palestine. However, the Germans conquered Holland and we were stuck in Holland. It was 1942 when we were summoned to the German headquarters and told that we have to evacuate our home to an extermination camp in Poland. A student came over and said, "We have a hiding place for you." The next day I found myself in a Dutch farming family. They kept me for 3 years. I immigrated into Israel in 1946. I was almost 11 years old. I was completely alone in this world. Wherever I came, somebody or some institute came to my rescue. The biggest of all was a youth village where I came to. The educational management took me by the hand and guided me and gave me a start which made my way up to flying school a piece of cake. I was selected by the Air Force to become a cadet in the most, well, famous Israeli Air Force. I was grateful that I could repay in a small way and contribute to the same effort. This mutual responsibility, from which I gained so much, followed through my whole career in the Air Force. I was the third captain who flew a C-130, a Hercules, to Entebbe and rescued so and so many people. When we were told that we have to fly 4 airplanes to Entebbe at weights beyond any imagination, we didn't ask any question. We said, it is needed, it will be done. In the early 90s, we were about to evacuate 14,500 Ethiopian Jews from Addis Ababa to Tel Aviv. We had 760 seats in our aircraft. However, when they arrived and all the seats were occupied, commanding officer of the operation came over and said, "We need you to take more people on." And my answer was, you don't have to ask even. It's obvious. Bring them on. I set a world record. I brought on one flight 1,087 people from Addis Ababa to Ben Gurion Airport. When we descended and came over Jerusalem, I made a left turn towards Ben Gurion, and the whole oil aircraft was singing Yerushalayim of gold. There was not one person in the cockpit who had no tears in his eyes. Every time. But when I made my walk around, I always looked up and saw the Star of David and said to myself, gee, this is Israel. This is the Jewish people.
Join Keren Hayesod in celebrating Israel's 70th anniversary by donating only $70 a month to help fund Aliyah. Let's bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, call us at 1-800-505-1665 or visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
The decision
to move the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and the inauguration of the embassy on May 14th, 2018, was an event for which we in Israel have waited 70 years and for which we, the Jewish people, have waited 2,000 years to be a free and independent people in our homeland, the land of Israel, and to have our eternal and undivided capital, Jerusalem, recognized by our greatest democratic ally, the United States of America. For those 70 years, the United States often pursued what I would call a deeply prejudicial and inapplicable policy. It was a policy in which Jews in Jerusalem were only allowed to build in certain neighborhoods. If they built outside those neighborhoods, they were considered illegal settlers. Now imagine that in any American city, Jews only being able to build and live in certain neighborhoods. It'd be called anti-Semitism. Palestinian Arabs in the city, by contrast, were able to build and live in any neighborhood. And even if they built illegally and Israeli police took down their illegal structures, Israel was blamed by the United States for illegal demolition. It was a prejudicial policy toward Jews and an inapplicable policy that spawned not one but 3 different U.S. consulates in that city, each serving a different population. That madness, that prejudice, came to an end on May 14th. A bold move, often in the face of brutal opposition from around the international community, but also inside the United States as well, from the media. President Trump and his team stood strong, and they proudly cut that ribbon and inaugurated that embassy, which has now brought other countries, Guatemala and Paraguay, and possibly some Eastern European countries, to follow suit. It has created an irreversible process in which the world will have to recognize, finally, Jerusalem, our eternal, undivided city, as Israel's capital.
Lift up your eyes and look around. All your children gather and come to you. The biblical prophecy is unfolding right before our very eyes. The people of Israel are returning to the Promised Land after 2,000 years of exile. But millions of Jews are still longing to come home. Anti-Semitism threatens many of the Jews. We must rescue them before the window of opportunity slams shut. Bless Israel by supporting Keren Hayesod United Israel Appeal, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Together, we can fulfill the prophecy of the Bible.
Let us bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, call us at 1-800-505-1665 or visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan Elrom.
And I'm Erin Viner, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.